Good morning, everybody. I'm Congressman Adriano Espaillat, chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Yesterday, the caucus adopted an official position regarding Venezuela. That is quite an accomplishment considering that we have within the caucus the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and the co-chair of the Blue Dogs. So ideologically, we have members from all over the spectrum, and yet we were able to reach a consensus and adopt an official position for the caucus regarding Venezuela. This is important because as members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, we probably know this issue better than anybody else in Congress. It impacts our districts with the migration of Venezuelans throughout the country. It's also historically an issue that we can all identify with and an issue that we know really well. In fact, we feel very strongly that our opinion is valuable for the caucus, the Democratic caucus, and Congress to really take a deep dive and address this pending matter. Let us first make two things clear. First one is that Nicholas Maduro was not a legitimate president of Venezuela. We know what happened during the elections. The entire world, the United Nations, the Organization of American States, and even the Vatican knew exactly what occurred in the past elections. So that is one truth. The other truth is that the President of the United States must come before Congress before ordering a military engagement to another country. Any president of any party has to do that. So these two truths are ones that we adopted yesterday, and we ensure that there is a roadmap to addressing this crisis. And now that Nicolas Maduro is sort of like in the rear view mirror, we crafted policies that support a free and democratic future for Venezuela, and policies that return to the truth that a president must come before Congress before entering any conflict in any part of the world. That is enshrined in our Constitution. CHC adopted a forward-looking position paper on Venezuela. These are the principles that should guide our future in engaging this country. Remember, as I said earlier, CHC is ideologically diverse. And so some of the things that we agreed on was, for example, to ensure that there is no future war conflict unless the president comes before Congress and makes his or her case as to why we should be there. The Venezuelan government, which, by the way, continues to be the allies of Nicolas Maduro, must free political prisoners. Now, we know and we've heard that right now, as we speak, they're still tracking down, harassing, and putting in jail many civil society leaders. That government must respect freedom of opinion and freedom of the press. It is important that that is reinstated. In addition to that, we feel very strongly that the Venezuelan people must have free and reliable elections in the near future to reestablish their leadership and their confidence in democracy. These are some of the positions that we adopted yesterday, but we have with us folks like the ranking member of the Western Hemisphere Subcommittee of Foreign Affairs, and he is someone that has been working with these issues in Latin America and the Caribbean for a good long time. So I would like to introduce Congressman Joaquin Castro.
All right. Thank you all. Good morning. I'm Congressman Joaquin Castro and proud to represent my hometown of San Antonio, Texas, and also serve as a ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, the subcommittee for the Western Hemisphere. And about a week ago, Donald Trump invaded Venezuela unconstitutionally, illegally, and before that had spent months building up the military in the Caribbean. When we were briefed in December, we asked point blank, I asked specifically of Secretary Rubio, whether the administration would come to Congress to ask for authorization for any kind of land strikes or land invasion. He said at the time that there were no plans to do so and that they would come to Congress for anything that required an AUMF. They obviously did not. I have great concerns for both the American people and the Venezuelan people. For the American people, Donald Trump, in this illegal invasion, has now said that he's going to run Venezuela from Washington, D.C., I suppose. He's using the language of forever war. Our nation spent 20 years, more or less, in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it cost our country trillions of dollars. The president has now said that beyond Venezuela, that he may take over Greenland, may take military action in Colombia, in Mexico, and a few other countries. Nobody in 2024 supported a presidential candidate who said that they would invade 3 or 4 or 5 countries. This is an especially important and thorny issue in Latin America because of the United States' history in Latin America. During the Cold War, the United States treated every right-wing leader as a friend and every left-wing leader as a foe. And because of that, we supported leaders who abused their people and who abused human rights. We supported coups. We supported, for example, Pinochet in Chile, whose government killed thousands of people and disappeared many others. And other leaders in Latin America who also disappeared their people. Their families never learned their fates or what happened to them. Donald Trump is trying to take us back to that era when he talks about the Monroe Doctrine, which is a play on the Monroe Doctrine, this idea that the United States is going to go dominate Latin America. That's what it meant before. Supporting right-wing leaders, supporting coups, supporting leaders who abused their people, who murdered their people, who disappeared their people. And it led to incredible destabilization of these countries and civil wars and mass migration. And that's part of the reason that you had so many folks come to the United States from places like Central America and South America, not just the United States, but migrate to other countries as well. So when we hear Donald Trump talk about this kind of 21st century imperialism, that's what's at stake, is a destabilization and a migration. Now, throughout this, we have seen that there are many Venezuelans and Venezuelan Americans who are quite happy that Nicholas Maduro is no longer in power. And they're right to be happy, and we don't blame them at all. We understand. Nicholas Maduro was not a good leader. Nicholas Maduro abused his people. Nicholas Maduro did not win the last presidential election. But Nicholas Maduro simply being gone doesn't guarantee the safety, the security, or a democratic society in Venezuela. And my deep concern right now is that Donald Trump's foreign policy is make Trump rich, that he's acting not in the best interests of the American people or even the Venezuelan people, but in the best interest of Donald Trump, in an attempt to enrich a small circle of cronies and potentially family members. And at this point, based on what he's done around the world, I wouldn't be surprised if 5 or 10 years from now, we see that people who are close to Donald Trump, his cronies, have made millions and billions of dollars off of the industries in Latin America and other countries that Donald Trump may try to invade. Unfortunately, that's where we are right now in the United States of America. So we are here today to say that the American people don't want any more war in Venezuela. They don't want a war with Mexico or Colombia or Greenland. And that at a minimum, the president must come to Congress for any authorization for any military action in Venezuela at the moment, and of course, for military action in the future. With that, I'd like to introduce my great colleague, also from the state of Texas, Sylvia Garcia.
Thank you, Congressman, and thank you to the Congressional Hispanic Caucus for putting this thing together. And I think we can all agree on one thing. Nicholas Maduro was a brutal dictator. His regime was illegitimate, no questions about that. We are glad that Maduro is gone, but the real question now is, where is all this going? He's talking about running Venezuela for years. He was asked in a New York Times interview that I heard this morning on a podcast, you know, how long will it be? And he just said, as long as it takes. He was never specific. Then they asked him, well, what guides you? You know, he said international law, and he said, no, it's my own morality, which just means he doesn't feel like he has to answer to anyone but to himself. He is openly discussing oil interests to access Venezuela's reserves. This has always been about the oil. To me, this does not sound like someone who has really thought things through or is really thinking about law enforcement, as they say. This is about building an empire for himself, his family, and his cronies. And while the White House is focused on running another country, Americans are running out of money here at home. Healthcare costs are out of control. Child care costs are out of control. Rent is rising. Grocery bills are going up. Families need relief. But what does this administration focus on instead? Another costly conflict nobody wants except Trump's billionaire buddies who asked for it. Imagine he called his billionaire buddies in the oil and gas industry to give them a heads up that he was doing this, but not the elected members of Congress. A president who ignores Congress, laws, and most importantly, the will of the American people, in my mind, is a dictator. The world is watching. Again, they're asking, where is all this going? Who will be next? Our allies are raising alarms that this type of unilateral use of force is setting a very dangerous precedent. So today I stand with the thousands of Venezuelans in my district, and I'm always mindful that one of our suburbs, Katy, is no longer called Katy, it's actually called Venezuela, because there are so many Venezuelans in Katy. This administration cannot claim to protect Venezuelans on one hand and then turn around to rescind TPS status for hundreds of thousands seeking asylum and protection. TPS status was fought for and established to offer relief to Venezuela's severe political, economic, and humanitarian crisis. And these people did the right thing. They followed the rules, then this administration turned their back on them. If they ever needed TPS, they need it now. We need to restore TPS for Venezuelans. We need Congress as an equal branch of government to fulfill its responsibility and keep its check on this out-of-control president. We need to reassert Congress's role in decisions of war and peace. I applaud the Senate's advancement of a war powers resolution. We need more Republicans to do the right thing. This out-of-control administration owes the American people answers, accountability, and the Constitution deserves respect. Again, it's all about where is this really going. Thank you, and now I yield to, I don't have the list, Congressman Soto from Florida.
Thank you, Sylvia. In Central Florida, we have many Venezuelan Americans and refugees. Central Floridians celebrated together when Maduro was captured. He was a violent dictator that stole his recent election. But many were surprised when one dictator was replaced by another. Even worse, the Trump administration canceled TPS, temporary protective status, and many Venezuelans are still being deported. The administration talked about asylum, yet they're deporting people from the courthouse and not respecting asylum claims. We oppose further military action without congressional authorization, and you'll hear that throughout from all the CHC. The current U.S. oil embargo must be used to ensure free and fair elections as soon as possible. Congress must continue to put pressure on the administration towards this goal. The Hispanic Caucus stands in solidarity with the Venezuelan people, and we will work towards a free Venezuela once again. Brevemente en español. En mi distrito, en Florida Central, nosotros tenemos muchos americanos de herencia venezolano y refugiados. Nosotros celebramos juntos cuando Maduro estuvo capturado. Él era un dictador violento quien robó su elección. Pero muchos de nosotros estuvimos sorprendidos cuando un dictador estuvo reemplazado a un otro. Más peor, la administración de Trump canceló TPS y muchos venezolanos todavía están deportados. Nosotros estamos en oposición a otra acción militares sin autoridad de Congreso. Y este embargo de petróleo de Estados Unidos necesita estar usado para asegurar una elección libre y justo pronto a posible. Y el Congreso necesita continuar para hacer presión a esta administración para este logro. El caucus hispano está en el lado y en solidaridad con el pueblo de Venezuela, y nosotros vamos a continuar trabajando para un Venezuela libre. Gracias.
Good morning. I want to thank the chairman, all my colleagues on CHC for bringing us here today and the work that we've done on Venezuela to put this policy together. I want to join my colleagues in saying that, we can keep a couple of truths separate. Nicholas Maduro was a brutal dictator. We have an extremely capable and talented military intelligence community. We want to see a democratic path for the people of Venezuela. Those things can all be true, but we have to look at what this administration has done. They set up this military action first by talking about narco-terrorism. That's no longer part of the conversation. Second, they've now made it clear that this is about oil extraction in Venezuela. And for the future of Venezuela, well, today at the White House, oil executives are going to be meeting with the president to discuss Venezuela's future. Not pro-democracy leaders, not the families of political prisoners, not faith leaders from Venezuela who are very vested and concerned about what the future of Venezuela looks like. Oil executives from the United States who will be working with the Maduro regime. So simply because we've extracted Maduro clearly does not mean that the United States government, our president, our Secretary of State, our Secretary of Energy are not working with the Maduro regime, the same brutal set of leaders who have oppressed the Venezuelan people for far too long. So when they say that we are going to govern Venezuela, that is a very difficult and problematic proposition. It's made even more problematic by the fact that they are bringing in people who are not vested in the Venezuelan people's future, in a democratic future, because that's made clear by working again with the remaining Maduro regime. So these are the things that we remain concerned about. These are the things that we have not been given straight answers by this administration, and that we'll continue to push them on because as a caucus that is deeply vested not just in Venezuela, not just in the Western Hemisphere, but American principles and what they mean in 2026 and beyond, we are going to stay on this administration. We're going to continue to demand answers. We're going to continue to work for our communities here, as Congresswoman Garcia said, with respect to TPS. There's a lot of work to do. We're going to do that work together, and I'm proud that the CHC is leading that effort. With that, I'd like to call my good friend, colleague, Gil Cisneros.
Thank you, Rob. I am Congressman Gil Cisneros. I represent California's 31st District in the San Gabriel Valley of California. I'm also a Navy veteran, former Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel Readiness at the Department of Defense, and I'm honored to be here with my colleagues today to call out the president's actions in Venezuela. The Constitution is clear. Only Congress, not the president, has the power to authorize any military action. The pursuit of military intervention and regime change without any concrete plan on how to address this instability now created within Venezuela is ludicrous. I know because I served in our military. I worked in the Pentagon. This is not how America prioritizes its national security. Our service members are not pawns to be played with so Trump can get his hands on Venezuelan oil. But let's be honest, that is really what this action has been about from the beginning. This whole time, it's been about oil. Hell, Trump even gave his oil crony friends a heads up to this action before he even talked to members of Congress. Again, Trump is showing the American people that this is not about keeping the American people safe or combating drug traffickers. If it was, he wouldn't have pardoned one convicted drug trafficker while capturing another. The American people deserve transparency. But Trump, Hegseth, and Rubio are hiding from accountability, and they need to publicly testify about their future plans because time and time again, they have lied to members' faces in public and in closed-door briefings about the country deserves to know the truth. I'm deeply disturbed by the president's unilateral actions in this highly contentious attacks in another country, and I stand firmly against sending America into another endless war over oil. We cannot allow the president or this Trump administration to unconstitutionally and recklessly keep playing with our national security. The American people deserve more. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to my friend from Arizona, Representative Grijalva.
Thank you all for being here. I think what you've heard from every member is that the CHC is united in this statement that we need transparency, we need accountability, and we need an administration that's going to work with Congress. These unilateral actions are not making our democracy safer, not making our nation safer, not helping anyone here. We appreciate the fact that Maduro was a dictator. That is not a contested issue. The issue that we have to deal with is not just what's happening in Venezuela. What is the game plan? What are we going to move forward to? But the implication that this is just the first of many other efforts that the United States is going to get involved in other countries. So this is not about humanitarian issues. It's not about drug issues and narco-trafficking. It's not about that. It's about petroleum. It's about profits for this administration and their friends, and we deserve better as a nation.
Thank you. I want to thank all the members that have worked on developing these position statements. Let me go through them again. The first point is supporting a free and democratic Venezuela. The Venezuelan people really deserve a timely and transparent election. El primer punto que apoyamos es de apoyar una Venezuela libre y democrática, y eso requiere unas elecciones transparentes y diáfanas lo más rápido posible. The second point is supporting congressional oversight and requirement authorization before any further military intervention. And we've heard from our members speak about that. We feel very strongly that any president from any party must adhere to that constitutional provision. Nosotros, el segundo punto es apoyar y asegurar que la autorización de cualquier acción militar de cualquier presidente, no obstante el partido, venga a través del Congreso como está estipulado en el artículo número 1 de nuestra Constitución. The third point is humanitarian protection at home and abroad, and economic stability for Venezuela and the region. And of course, that includes extending TPS for Venezuelans. It is mind-boggling to think that Venezuelans that oppose the government, that are here in the United States today, may go back while the Maduro government is still in place. So we are obviously advocating strongly for TPS to be reinstated and extended for all Venezuelans. Nosotros, el tercer punto es de protección humanitaria, tanto aquí como en Venezuela, y entendemos que el TPS debe de ser restaurado y el pueblo, los venezolanos que se encuentran aquí en los Estados Unidos, muchos de los cuales son oponentes a la dictadura de Maduro, no deben de ser deportados hacia Venezuela, donde ellos van a enfrentar represalias de un gobierno que esencialmente todavía lo liderean personas afiliadas con Nicolás Maduro. Also, in addition to that, we also feel very strongly that political prisoners must be released. And as they release some political prisoners, other folks are being incarcerated simultaneously. So we want to make sure that the great number of political prisoners that are in jail, including people, civil society leaders, and people from journalists and others, are released as quickly as possible. Nosotros queremos que los presos políticos, muchos de los cuales son líderes de la sociedad civil y periodistas, sean naturalmente estén en libertad lo más rápido posible. The fourth point is a democratic transition led by the Venezuelan people. We know that this cannot happen and for it to be legitimate unless the Venezuelan people are invested in this effort to go back, have a free and fair election, and be part of a transformational process, a democratic process. And finally, we want to, the fifth point is guardrails on the exploitation and respect for sovereign nations. We know that the president is threatening Colombia and Mexico and other countries, and we know firsthand that that should not happen, and there should be no military action against these nations unless the president comes before the U.S. Congress. Nosotros sabemos de que hay amenazas en contra de la soberanía de países como Colombia y México, y nada de esto puede suceder y debe suceder sin que el presidente venga aquí al Congreso como lo estipula la Constitución de la Nación. Thank you. Any questions? Yes?
I have two questions. The first one is, since the strike on January 3rd, have you heard from any of your Republican colleagues about concerns that they have around this? And then for Congressman Castro specifically, and the rest as well, so the Senate advanced a war powers resolution. It had failed in the past. This time it's moving forward for a final vote. Do you expect to have a growing number of Republicans supporting it this time around beyond the ones have already signed on, like Massey and Bacon and Green, but she's no longer here?
We'll take the last question first, and we'll ask the congressman to answer.
Sure. So I guess about a month ago, a little bit more than a month ago, I was a part of filing our resolution in the House, our war powers resolution, to stop any hostilities with Venezuela unless the president came to Congress to get permission. It was myself, Jim McGovern, and Thomas Massey. That's been refiled now, so it won't be ripe for a bit, till about January 22nd or so, I think. To answer your question, I hope and I believe I've had some promising conversations that will have full Democratic support this time. And then secondly, with respect to Republicans, look, privately in conversations I think that I've had and others have had with our Republican colleagues, there has been real concern, deep concern. And you saw some of that expressed yesterday in the Senate when they took their vote on their war powers resolution. And so, we're working on it, and we hope that we can grow Republican support. But we also believe that if we can get all of our Democrats, given the composition of the Congress right now, because we only lost by 2 votes last time, that we can actually win this vote.
I think he answered both questions, right? Yes.
I had a question, not quite on foreign policy, but more related to domestic defense. In light of what's happened in Minneapolis, does the CHC believe that there should be restrictions added into the DHS funding bill when that comes up?
We're certainly concerned not just with the practices of ICE, the fact that many ICE agents conduct their enforcement activities masked. And when you're masked, you have no name, you're anonymous. And so this is troubling to us that law enforcement, in this case ICE, knocks on someone's door while they're masked and their identity is anonymous. We feel that this is a practice that not only is troubling, but that it will also contribute to a growing distrust between law enforcement in general and our population. You don't see our local police departments act in that fashion. And so we're concerned about that. We're also concerned about sensitive locations, which means that ICE agents could raid a church, a synagogue, a temple, that ICE agents could conduct aggressive activities around a schoolyard. We're concerned about that as a practice. In fact, the past administration had the body camera pilot project for Border Patrol, which protects not just civilians, but the law enforcement themselves from any false accusation. Everything will be recorded. Any interaction between law enforcement and the public will be recorded by a body camera. And so these are some of the reforms that we propose and we advocate for regarding ICE. But this last rash of violent behavior that led to the vile killing of a woman, a 37-year-old woman in Minnesota, and others across the country is totally unacceptable. You know, I was of the belief that perhaps we could reform ICE. Now I am of the belief that it has to be dismantled as an entity. It is part of its sort of like culture. This unaccounted for violence is part of its culture. And so we must dismantle it and build it from the ground up again. I don't know if my colleagues want to weigh in any of them. Any other questions? Otra pregunta? Going once, going twice? Thank you. Thank you so much. Gracias.